To my colleagues in the cabinet, members of the academe, civil society organizations, and business groups, good morning. As a serious student of public administration and economics, and as a participant in the design of tax reforms in the past, I've seen them all, okay? And I would say that there are two major tax reforms in the Philippines. The 1986 tax reform program of Mrs. Aquino and the 1997 tax reform program of President Ramos. One is a success, a big success, mainly because it was done at the start of the administration and because Mrs. Aquino at that time was very popular, and maybe this will never happen again. It took place under a revolutionary government. There was no Congress. Okay. The second one, in fact, a measure of the success, I would say, is the increase in the tax effort. We started at less than 10% tax effort. That is taxes divided by GDP. And it went up to as high as 17%. The second tax reform was, I would consider, a non-event at best, and was a failure at worst. Why? Because as a result of the tax reform, tax effort declined to about 13% from 17%. And what's the reason? It is because it was done towards the end of the administration. You don't do reform at the end of any administration. So the important lesson here is that we need this tax reform now. We need it now. So now I'm going to go to my task, which is how to answer the question, ano ba ang may tutulong ng tax reform sa ating mga kababayan? Now, to the Department of Budget and Management, the obvious answer is that tax reform will help government finance the delivery of essential public services. In particular, it will help us achieve our goals to upgrade public infrastructure and to develop our young people into an agile and competent workforce. These two development priorities are integral to boosting the performance of the Philippine economy and ultimately reducing poverty to 14% by 2022. Now, first, let me talk about infrastructure. The successful passage of the tax reform program will translate to wider roads and bridges, modern airports, seaports, and railway systems, more schools, more health facilities, farm-to-market roads and flood control facilities, and everything in between. This will open up economic opportunities for all Filipinos, whether from the urban or rural areas, as we link lagging regions to growth centers. This means more jobs, more commerce, and in time, higher incomes for our citizens. Our public transport system will also be revitalized with the aid of the tax reform. I will leave it to the DPWH and DOTR to elaborate, but the government promises to make the daily commute safer and more comfortable for Filipinos. This is why numerous highways, railways, subways, and bus rapid transit systems are in the pipeline. We want you to be doing productive work rather than wasting your precious time stuck in traffic. And we want you to spend more time with your family rather than more time on the road. But let me warn you, and this is for the impatient among us, things will get worse before they get better. Because with all the construction that we will do, it's gonna be like hell, right? But it will. There is something at the end of the tunnel. So things will get worse before they get better. But rest assured that your government is acting urgently to address this situation. For the next 6 years, we will spend something like 8 to 9 trillion pesos for public infrastructure. The Build program is easily the most ambitious infrastructure program in recent Philippine history. And a large part of its success or failure will lie with the passage of the tax reform package now pending in the Senate. Next, tax reform will also allow us to invest in our people. Education, healthcare, housing, social protection are essential in molding our youth into productive members of society. Our young people will be the future drivers of economic growth, so we must equip them with the tools to be successful. Remember, the median age of our population is about 23 years. In an aging world, this is a huge advantage. And beyond preparing our labor force for the future, the social services extended by government will also install safety nets for the poor and marginalized. In concrete terms, the additional revenues will enable government to sustain its conditional cash transfer program, the full implementation of the K-12 program, its pursuit for universal field health coverage, among other social protection schemes. The total budgetary allocation for our banner social programs, Pantawid, National Health Insurance, Health Facilities Enhancement Program, in Basic Educational Facilities Program will reach 322 billion in 2018, more than 7 times its allocation in 2011. So granted, the tax reform will have some short-term impact on prices. We have put in place mitigating measures to temper these effects. So, for example, 40% of the incremental revenues from oil excise will be used to fund 5 social mitigating measures: the Targeted Cash Transfer Program, Pantawid Pasada, Pantawid Kuryente, the PUV Modernization Program, and the Social Welfare Card System. First, on the Targeted Cash Transfer Program. This would benefit the poorest 10 million households. That's the bottom half. There would be an unconditional cash transfer of 200 pesos per month or 2,400 per year. And this will be implemented by the DSWD under the management of NEDA. This program seeks to extend financial assistance to our poorest countrymen to ease their burden in making their ends meet. And this is in line with the administration's commitment to change, ensuring a better life for all sectors, especially the poor. Next is Pantawid Pasada. Pantawid Pasada will give support to our public utility jeepney drivers. As fuel costs are expected to increase due to higher oil excise taxes, we will be handing out cash cards worth 2,200 pesos per month per jeepney. This shall be under the management of DOTR and LTFRB. The 2,200 peso per month per jeepney grant will more than offset the perceived increase in oil prices for PUJ drivers. Next is Pantawid Kuryente. This will benefit our countrymen who would be affected by the increase in power costs due to higher excise taxes. We aim to reach all lifeline users in small power utilities group or SPUG areas as our beneficiaries. And with the help of NPC and the Department of Energy, we expect to fulfill this power subsidy program to make power costs cheaper for the people who need it most. Next is the PUV Modernization Program. We also aim to make our public transportation system more efficient, not only through the building of new infrastructure, but also through the modernization of our signature Filipino transport vehicle, the jeepney. Over the next 6 years, we aim to replace 220,000 jeepneys that are more than 15 years old. We shall replace them with more efficient jeeps, minibuses, or buses. And with this program, drivers will now have fixed wages, which we foresee will improve the welfare of our drivers. The modern jeep design would also have reduced CO2 emissions. It will have a GPS system, a camera, and an automated fare collection system. The entrance shall be moved from the back to the side as an additional safety measure for the riding public. And it will be cleaner and more efficient. The modern Jeep would also operate on Euro 4 engine or electric, increasing mileage from 5.7 to 10.1 kilometers per liter. And this program will be implemented by DOTR and the LTFRB. Lastly, we intend to give all Filipinos a national ID that will also function as a social welfare card. This would identify the qualified beneficiaries for discounts on transportation, healthcare, transportation, and medicines. The national ID would contain one's biometrics and shall be given at birth, but renewable once the person reaches the legal age of 18. The national ID would replace all IDs except the passport and the driver's license. The national ID will also include an EMV chip so we can easily transfer or load subsidies to its targeted recipients. This will also help us plug the leaks in the social welfare programs that we are sponsoring. So under the supervision of the National Economic Development Authority, the Philippine Statistical Authority shall implement the registration. Meanwhile, the DSWD shall coordinate the various programs relevant to social services, targeting, and subsidies. Our plan is that within 2 years of the enactment of this proposal, we will be able to provide 105 million Filipinos with an ID card. As such, for 2018, priority will be given to senior citizens and PWDs, followed by the poorest 5.2 million households in the listahan 2015 that have no CCT cards. Even as we speak today, this process is now being done. I have asked the preparation of an executive order that will enable us to pursue this ID system. So viewed as a package, the tax reform program of the Duterte administration will only serve to strengthen the economy and improve the lives of Filipinos. It is efficient. It plugs the loopholes in our tax system while providing government with sufficient revenues to finance our spending priorities. It improves fairness since it shifts the tax burden to the top 1%, while the welfare of the poorest segments of society is protected. In simple terms, this is a win-win situation that does not come very often. And it's time to rally behind the tax reform program of the Duterte administration. Thank you.